On the 10th of April 1912, the Titanic set sail from Southampton. The ship was on her maiden voyage to New York City, where from berth 44 from Southampton docks, the trip would take 7 days. But with a journey like Titanic's, what food would her passengers have had on board? In this mini-series, we are going to be showing and discussing what foods that was served in all 3 classes. This is Le Restaurant Titanic. The voyage from Queenstown had been quite uneventful. Very fine weather was experienced and the sea was quite calm. The wind had been westerly and southwesterly the whole way, but very cold, particularly the last day. In fact, after dinner on Sunday evening, it was almost too cold to be out on deck. This is a quote written by second-class passenger Lawrence Beasley for his book, The Loss of the Titanic. Beasley, a science teacher, resigned from his job as a science professor at Dulwich College after deciding to visit his family in Toronto. He boarded the Titanic from Southampton on the 10th of April 1912, though he didn't write about life on board from then up until Sunday the 14th, describing the events as being very little to report. However, he did note that because of the calm ocean, so few people missed meals. In this episode, after focusing on the cafes and restaurants in first class, we will now look into the food and the drink that was served to the Titanic's second-class passengers. Although second class was the smallest class on board the Titanic, it was considered more luxurious than first class. Passenger accommodation was provided over 7 decks with a grand stairway and an electric elevator that ran up and down all 7 decks. Just like first class, the second-class passengers were offered a variety of entertainment and comfort in the staterooms, including their smoking room, library, and a dining saloon. However, they weren't allowed as many opportunities as first-class passengers, largely because second-class passengers were treated with less respect. But the grandest room in second class was, of course, like mentioned before, the dining room. Second-class passenger Kate Buss would describe a comparison in a letter. The first-class apartments are really magnificent, and unless you had first seen them, you would think the second were the same. Unfortunately, there was an angry second-class passenger who liked to complain, especially when it came to the food. This passenger's name was Emasina Shirley. In the following description she made for the US Enquiry, she mentioned, "The food, though good and plentiful, was ruined by this trouble in serving, that although both steward and stewardess appealed time and time again to the heads of their departments, no relief was obtained. There seemed to be no organisation at all." While the experiences of the saloon and the food were mixed, the second-class dining saloon had a reputation for being just as equally as good as the first-class dining saloon, offering significantly higher comfort and luxury. The second-class rooms and its passengers are often overlooked when it comes to the history of the Titanic. However, the second-class dining saloon had been recorded by various passengers in great detail, with the most detailed accounts written by Kate Buss. Kate Buss was emigrating to San Diego from her English hometown of Sittingbourne in Kent, where she was going to join her fiancé, Samuel Wills. Buss was travelling solo and her ticket was bought by her family. When she arrived in Southampton on the 10th of April, Buss was seen off at the dock by her brother Percy Buss. Kate Buss settled into her cabin on E deck. After the Titanic departed Southampton, she met Dr. Ernest Morwack, forgive me if I pronounce his name incorrectly, and she wrote a letter to her parents about her first lunch in the dining saloon. Throughout the voyage, Buss regularly wrote letters to her parents, mostly at a long extension. In her first letter, dated the 11th of April, Buss wrote about her first lunch in the saloon. It took me a long time to exchange my ticket for a table ticket, but I pushed my way in and got it done. Then, as there are 8 persons at each table, I found myself opposite 2 clergy, one quite a young foreigner and the other very ugly. I have an end seat. Buss would have had an unpleasant experience due to the unattractive attention from the young foreigner, but he and the other unnamed guests would have been treated to large meals which were very similar to a fancy dinner. The meals would have included vegetable dumplings, pea soup, jacket potatoes, roast mutton with pickles, salad and curried chicken and rice. I wonder how that got there and whose idea it was. The second-class dining saloon, located on D deck and stretching, was 71 feet and 7.5 inches and was remembered as having a tasteful design. Inside the saloon was decorated with oak panelling and mahogany furniture. With the style of the room was described as being Old English, the dining saloon possibly modelled after the drawing room or the Elizabethan Long Gallery at Harden Hall in Bakewell, England. Harden Hall, known for its beauty, structure and countryside views, had long interiors designed around the 1560s when it was in possession of the Manners family. Although Harden Hall is one of the oldest houses in the country, it's not clear who proposed the idea of the interior, but J. Bruce Ismay or someone else might be responsible. The saloon had long rectangular tables with swivel chairs bolted to the floor and upholstered in red leather, accommodating 402 people. The 44 tables were covered with white tablecloths, napkins, 7 utensils, bone china plates, and separate glasses for water and wine. The food for second-class passengers was prepared in the same galley as first class, but the difference lay in the choice and the quantity of the dishes being served. The cook for second class was Henry or Harry Robert Stubbings. Stubbings began working as a domestic groom in Southampton before switching careers from land to the sea. He became a seaman before signing on to the RMS Olympic as a second-class crew member, for which he received a monthly wage of £7.10. Later on, Stubbings signed on to the Titanic and travelled on the Titanic's delivery trip from Belfast to Southampton, remaining on board for the rest of the voyage. The galley would have been located on D deck, where many irresistible meals would have been prepared and served. The galley had been constructed on a vast scale with huge cooking ranges manufactured by Henry Wilson & Co Limited of Liverpool. The galley was coal-fired with electric warmers, and the 2 ranges had a frontage of 96 feet and incorporated 19 ovens, along with a set of zinc and heavy brass cooking pots supplied by Elkerton & Co, a silver manufacturer located in Birmingham, England. The galley also had other electrical devices, including a potato peeler, and in the storage room there was a 30-ton coal bunker. In the dining saloon, the environment for second-class passengers would have been structured, but not as strict as first class. For instance, in comparison to the first-class dining saloon, the second class allowed children to accompany their parents into the saloon. When the saloon wasn't used for church services or meals, it was used as a playroom. In the seating arrangements of the saloon, passengers had to make arrangements at the second-class purser's office, which was located below the dining saloon. When the arrangements were made, passengers had to sit in different seats at the same table. The dress code was also less strict. During mealtimes, casual attire was acceptable during the day, and in the evening, gentlemen were expected to wear classic suits, while women were required to wear long-sleeved blouses with either long dresses or long skirts. Similar to the first-class dining saloon, the second-class dining saloon also had musical entertainment. There were 8 musicians on board the Titanic, however only 3 were known to have played in the dining saloon, with one of them being John Wesley Woodward. It was also noted that Kate Buss, who was engaged, had become attached to Woodward. This attachment was documented in her letters to her parents, suggesting that Buss and Woodward had developed a close friendship during the voyage. The close friendship had given Buss confidence, especially since travelling alone, and had attracted unwanted attention. In her letters, Buss mentioned that she would get up at 7 a.m. each morning and wait inside her cabin until she heard a bell signalling for breakfast, mainly to avoid encountering men outside her cabin. However, when she stayed in her cabin or walked up to one promenade deck above in the afternoon and evening, Buss would hear the trio playing. The trio also performed in daily musical concerts near the second-class entrance and in the dining saloon. According to Buss, she referred to Woodward as the cello man and described their close friendship and Woodward's warm personality in one of her letters. Cello man, quite nice, very superior bandsman, and he always smiles his parting to us. Apart from the musical entertainment, Buss would enjoy the wonderful food that had been prepared in the second-class pantry and galley. Although there are no records of further menus for all 3 meals in second class, 3 menus from the 11th of April, the 12th and the 14th have survived. The first was the breakfast menu that was recorded on the 11th of April. During that day, and most likely during the voyage, breakfast for the second-class passengers would begin at 8 a.m. with an announcement signalled by the chiming bell, waking passengers from their slumber. With true dedication from Stubbings, Wilfred Seward, forgive me if I pronounce his name incorrectly, Alfred John Harding, John Dixon Lummour, and Percy Robert Pooke. The breakfast they prepared for April the 11th would have been similar to the first-class breakfast menu, except they had their oats, potatoes, and their selections were smaller. Also, passengers had a choice for fruit, rolled oats, fresh fish, watercress, Yarmouth bloaters, which is cold smoked herring, grilled meats, and mashed and fried potatoes. The passengers also had their unique breakfast dishes, which were very special additions, such as American dry hash on gratin, and forgive me, I pronounced this name wrong again, but that is a very weird pronunciation. But in English, it is a casserole containing shredded hash brown potatoes, oats, onion, milk, and various cheeses. They also would have had Vienna and Graham rolls, an Austrian dish made out of wheat bread and Graham flour, Irish soda scones, and buckwheat cakes. They also had a selection of marmalade, tea, and coffee. On the 12th of April, while the Titanic was sailing on the open ocean, the passengers were treated to a delicious but limited lunch menu. Each passenger had their separate dishes, including pea soup, spaghetti au gratin, corned beef, vegetable dumplings, roast mutton, roast beef, jacket potatoes, sausages, ox-tongue, tapioca pudding, and apple tart. After the meal, passengers had the option of eating cheese and biscuits and drinking coffee. On the morning of the 14th of April, the dining saloon hosted Catholic and short church services led by Father Thomas Biles and Purser Reginald Barker. Music was played on an upright Steinway and Sons piano located in a clove against the forward wall. Following the church services, arrangements were made for passengers to sign up for a concert. One day earlier, an announcement had been made for a charity gala concert, which was to take place on Monday the 15th of April. The planned event was in aid of the Sailors' Home, and passengers were welcome to assist the orchestra. While the final arrangements were made for the concert, dinner was being prepared and served. The final meal involved an extended amount of food choices equal to those in first class. Second-class passengers were treated to consommé tapioca as a starter and had the choices of baked haddock, curried chicken and rice, lamb, roast turkey, rice, vegetables, potatoes, plum pudding, wine jelly, coconut sandwiches, nuts, fruit, and American ice cream for their main course and dessert. After dinner, coffee, cheese, and biscuits were also available. After dinner, the entire second-class room foyer filled with the sound of music in the evening. There was a brief evensong service in the saloon is omitted and the usual evening concert by the trio orchestra. During the concert, Buss assisted Woodward in collecting subscriptions or tips. At her friend's request, Woodward and the orchestra played Buss's requested song, Nearer My God to Thee. Woodward told Buss that she could continue collecting subscriptions before the end of the voyage. Little did they know that their friendship would come to an end hours later. Next time, we will be exploring the third-class dining saloon and diving into the Maid and Valier's dining saloon.